Tom Homan was back on Fox News, this time not talking about the $50,000 bribe. Tom Homan went back on TV to talk about the issues that they're having with passing off this aggressive terrorist organization that they've unleashed on the streets, somehow to pass it off as something that people should accept. It ain't working, Tom.
Tom, are you concerned about the CNN and Quinnipiac polls that showed declining public support for ICE and President Trump's approach to immigration enforcement? Do you think those are accurate? Or are they being egged on by the press?
I think it'd be egged on by the press. I think there's a lot of false media out there, and I think we need to be better at messaging what we're doing. Look, bottom line is 70% of everybody arrested is a criminal. We need to start advertising that every single day and putting their pictures all over social media. And you know, the bottom line is if people listen to most of the media, not this network, they're going to hear that ICE is separating families every day. We're deporting U.S. citizen children. We're doing operations in elementary schools and churches and hospitals. We just got pushed back to lies because I think a lot of people don't get the facts, and we got to be better at getting the facts out there.
Tom Homan says that these guys need better messaging. And as he rolls through all the things that apparently are lies, every time he mentioned those things, there was a picture in my head of me literally seeing video of them doing those things. That's the problem they've got. It's why Kristi Noem demanded that no one can film and record DHS doing all these illegal activities because it flies in the face of their narratives. But I really want to focus on the fact that Tom Homan said they need better messaging. They need better messaging? Well, okay. Here was a good opportunity for Tom Homan to give them better messaging on the things that they're doing. Someone asked him very specifically about them violating people's rights. Is this better messaging?
On some of the when it comes to some of the ICE agents that are going door to door in places like Minneapolis, I'm just curious how you square some of those going into these homes with the Fourth Amendment search and seizure. How do you square those two things? And is there any potential violation of some of these ICE agents' activities going into some?
If any ICE agent, Border Patrol violates policy, they're allowed to be held accountable. But we got to remember that. You know, there's a lot of confusion out there, difference between reasonable suspicions and probable cause. If an officer gathers reasonable suspicion from a myriad of circumstances, a bunch of factors, they can temporarily detain and question somebody on an immigration interview. In order to arrest that person, you got to establish probable cause. I can't sit here and pull out case by case.
Who's going to give Tom Homan better messaging when Tom Homan doesn't have better messaging? Someone asked him about how they're violating people's Fourth Amendment rights. They're busting into people's houses, going door to door and asking for papers. I'm sorry, pulling people out of cars and asking for papers. Sorry, stopping Somali American women walking down the streets and asking them for papers, all that stuff. But apparently they need better messaging and apparently not better actions. Here's more from Tom Homan over the past year, all through 2025. Here's more of his really bad messaging.
When you get pushback as you head into Chicago from people like Mayor Johnson, what's your message to the mayor?
Get out of the way, because we're going to do it. Look, right after the election, when President Trump took the White House, the first operation that I was involved with was Chicago. Brandon Johnson says I wasn't welcome in Chicago. Well, the very next day I was in Chicago along with the task force, but we're going to be there anyway. So if you don't want to help, get out of the way.
How do you, what we've heard from lawyers representing some of these people is that they deny that they're members of this gang, or either Tren de Aragua or MS-13. Do they get a chance to prove that before you take them out of the country and put them into a notorious prison in a country that they're not even from? I mean, do they have any due process at all?
Look, due process. Where's Lake and Ronnie's due process? Where were all these young women that were killed and raped by members of TDA? Where was their due process?
Well, the people that did that should be prosecuted.
How about the young lady that burned alive on the subway? Where's her due process?
Well, sure.
The bottom line is that plane was full of people designated as terrorists. People need to understand, ICE officers and Border Patrol, they don't need probable cause to walk up to somebody, briefly detain them, and question them. They just need the totality of the circumstances, right? They just got through the observation, get articulable facts based on their location, their occupation, their physical appearance, their actions. Like a uniformed Border Patrol agent walks up to them at, for instance, a Home Depot. And they got all these articulable facts, plus the person walks away or runs away.
Somehow, It's really good messaging to say that they're going to racially profile people. We're going to go to places where we assume folks will be. Their accents, he said, is one of those articulable measures that they look into to try and figure out if they should arrest someone, detain them, demand some papers from them. That's like really bad messaging, Tom. Maybe he should pass it on to Caroline Levitt.
Earlier, you were just defending ICE agents generally, and earlier on, Secretary Noem spoke to the media, and she said, among other things, that they are doing everything correctly. 32 people died in ICE custody last year. 170 US citizens were detained by ICE, and Renee Good was shot in the head and killed by an ICE agent. How does that equate to them doing everything correctly?
Why was Renee Good unfortunately and tragically killed?
Are you asking me my opinion? Because an ICE agent acted recklessly and killed her unjustifiably.
Oh, okay. So you're a biased reporter with a left-wing opinion.
What do you want me to do?
Yeah, because you're a left-wing hack. You're not a reporter. You're posing in this room as a journalist, and it's so clear by the premise of your question. And you and the people in the media who have such biases but fake like you're a journalist, you shouldn't even be sitting in that seat. But you're pretending like you're a journalist, but you're a left-wing activist. And the question that you just raised and your answer proves your bias. You should be reporting on the facts. You should be reporting on the cases. Do you have the numbers of how many American citizens were killed at the hands of illegal aliens who ICE is trying to remove from this country? I bet you don't. I bet you didn't even read up on those stories. I bet you never even read about Laken Riley or Jocelyn Nungray or all of the innocent Americans who were killed at the hands of illegal aliens in this country. And the brave men and women of ICE are doing everything in their power to remove those heinous individuals and make our communities safer. And shame on people like you in the media who have a crooked view and have a biased view and pretend like you're a real honest journalist.
I think she thought she nailed that. I think she left there and went, I can't wait until President Trump sees this. Ooh, nailed it. That she goes through all that mean girl talking points about how she has no answer for the actual question, which was over 30 people died, over 100 American citizens arrested, and other folks were killed in the streets based off of this ICE defense that you've got, that you keep saying things were on the up and up. How do you determine things are on the up and up when people died and laws were broken? If you stop, you can hear the 12-year-old little mean girl in Caroline Levitt screaming at folks when she has no good points to convey. These are the people that are supposed to sell this illegal terrorist activity as something that we're supposed to accept. Again, Kristi Noem was asked, just like Tom Homan, they're violating people's Fourth Amendment rights.
Secretary Noem, are you okay with federal agents and officers violating people's Fourth Amendment rights by asking for papers without reasonable suspicion?
Every single action that our ICE officers take is according to the law and following protocols that we have used for years, that this administration has used, that the previous administration used. They are doing everything correctly, and over again in litigation in the courts, we've proven that they've done the right thing.
Why is it within their right to do that? Why is it within their right to ask for papers without reasonable suspicion?
That's how fascists operate. The law is what we say it is. And if you see something different, you're in violation of the law too, because our reality is what dictates your reality. And every ICE agent is in coordination with the law. How the hell does she know that? Is she in every ICE operation? Is she on the streets everywhere in the country where they've got people attacking folks? How would Kristi Noem know that everything they do is on the up and up when she's not there? What that is propaganda. Pam Bondi's up. There was a report that Donald Trump is souring on their relationship. So she had to come forward with some barking and yelling because that's what appeals to him.
What happened in Minnesota? We had 6 prosecutors who suddenly decided they didn't want to support the men and women in ICE. One of them was busy doing a photo shoot with the New York Times while ICE was out there risking their lives. So they came, they said, we want to resign, but we want to use our annual leave up until April, meaning they wanted the taxpayers to pay for them to go on vacation because they decided they didn't want to support law enforcement. So the breaking news tonight, I fired them all. They're fired from the office.
You can't quit because I fired you. Bro, they were already quitting. You're just not going to give them their vacation time. That's a tough guy stance from Pam Bondi. You know what I did? Breaking news, Sean. I fired them. Does she sound intimidating? Like she keeps trying. Like none of these guys are actually intimidating. They just kind of scream and yell and flail and sound like little babies. What makes this whole thing worse about how they fired these 6 prosecutors that were quitting? Look at the reasons why. Pam Bondi was so furious with 6 federal prosecutors who announced that they would resign rather than prosecute the widow of that Minnesota woman that was killed by an ICE agent, that she fired them before they had a chance to give their notice. What they were trying to make them do, these 6 prosecutors that quit before Pam Bondi fired them, was not prosecute the woman, Renee Good's partner. The attorneys had objected to opening that criminal investigation into Good's widow, Becca Good, instead of the agent who fatally shot Good while she was trying to drive away from the scene of that protest. So not only that, I'm not sure if many people know this. We know that the guy who shot her and killed, the murderer who shot and killed her, is in some kind of protective custody under this criminal administration. But also, they're completely throwing out any kind of investigation. They also oppose the Justice Department's refusal to include Minnesota state officials in the investigation into whether the shooting itself was lawful. They're just all over the place on this. This is what she thinks she's getting some kind of a good boost from. I fired the people who didn't want to do all these horrible things on top of the horrible thing that we're doing. The sad part about this whole thing is we got to bring in Harry Enton from CNN, the excited over-the-top stats guy, just to maybe give us the final conclusions on whether or not this BS that they keep spewing is actually working.
Americans at this point do not like ICE, and that is very different from what we saw during Trump's first term. Just take a look here. ICE's net approval rating. In Trump's first term, ICE, kind of lukewarm. You had them right there at a net approval rating of 0 points. Look at where we are today. We're talking about a negative 17-point approval rating. That is a 17-point drop from where we were during Trump's first term. Among independents, the number is even lower in terms of the net approval rating. And why is it that ICE is so unpopular at this point? Well, take a look at our new CNN SSRS poll, and I think this sort of gives the game away. ICE enforcement is making U.S. cities less safe. Look at this, 51%. 51% of Americans say that ICE enforcement in cities is making those cities less safe. That includes 59% of Americans who live in cities, compared to just 31% who say that, in fact, ICE enforcement is making U.S. cities more safe. So what we see here is Trump and ICE losing this argument over ICE going into cities, making them more safe.
We saw stuff like this back when he first ran up in L.A., in Washington, D.C., and they claimed crime was at 0 when it was at 150%, 600%, 700%. Everyone knows that they've been lying about this. But now, again, as we're seeing literal videos of people being murdered in the streets, now they're understanding it. It wasn't stark enough when we saw military vehicles rolling through Washington, D.C. with nothing else to do except destroy the roads. I mean, I'm happy to see it. It's a shame that it took this long. Maybe we'll learn our lesson and not be a part of allowing more of this to happen. Maybe we won't be fighting over obvious fascism that's right in front of our faces as soon as they see us.